special meeting of the Fairfield City Council to order, please. Roll call, Madam Clerk, if you would, please.
Councilmember Bertani?
Here.
Councilmember Moy?
Here.
Councilmember Panduro?
Here.
Councilmember Tim?
Here.
Councilmember Tonneson?
Here.
Vice Mayor Vaccaro?
Here.
And Mayor Price.
Here. And we have a quorum. The Pledge of Allegiance this evening will be led by Councilwoman Pamela Bertani, please.
Please join me in saluting our flag, everyone. Welcome. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Mr. Attorney, Mr. City Manager, would you introduce our City Attorney, please? This is her first Fairfield City Council meeting.
Yeah. So tonight, filling in for City Attorney David Lim, we have Casey Strong, Assistant City Attorney, who will be assisting us throughout the evening as we might have questions.
Okay. Welcome. Good to have you with us.
Thank you.
And process for public comments, Madam Clerk, if you would, please.
Persons wishing to address the City Council on subjects on the agenda may do so at this time. The Council cannot discuss or take action on matters not on the agenda for this meeting. To speak on an agenda item, please complete a speaker's card and give it to the City Clerk before the meeting or at the latest prior to the time for public comments on that item. For those joining via Zoom, please use the raise your hand feature or press *9 on your phone to request to speak. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. And we turn now to new business, Madam Clerk, please.
One moment, I have a speaker. So I have Sophia Rios, if she would like to speak.
Hello, my name is Sophia Rios. I'm sure a lot of you may have heard of me before. I just asked for a speaker card. I didn't anticipate speaking before you guys talked about your issues, but since it's a homeless problem and I was sleeping on your front porch this morning, I feel like I should speak. I've been homeless since July due to assault, home invasion, burglary situation. I've been in custody, arrested 8 times, and I have this horrible image of a really bad person. People are failing to realize that I'm being abused and I'm being neglected. I am disabled, I am competent, and they're requesting my mental health. My court date got put off until July 7th today. I get harassed by investigators on a regular basis. Standard of operations, I've had to contact the Catholic priest to intervene on the harassment issues with them. And so yes, I do say crazy, outlandish things. Yes, I do have a mental disability where I black out and I don't know, I react to things, accordingly. But nobody's paying attention to there is a reason why. So if I'm being abused, I'm being neglected. I sleep in the streets, literally. Like I have a tent. That's the only thing that I can't lose today. I have no money. I'm only living on Social Security. This isn't really a board issue, but it is because I just inherited part of Fairfield and I get kicked out of shelters, all these things. These are problems that you guys are taking in as a community to disperse and do things with, and that's not right. It's not fair to me. So other than that, those are my issues, personal problems that I'm bringing to you guys today, so you guys could have compassion. There's 3 men in jail today for rape since I've been homeless, and I don't feel like I or anybody deserves that. So I think that these are things that you guys should know about beyond whatever else people just communicate throughout the town. And when it comes to these homeless people, if you look at the statistics that you guys have here, there is not quite a big change in the amount. They're not taking care of those people. I just was in contact with a lady named Annabelle. She's been homeless since I was a little girl. I just had a moment where I remembered her throwing a fit about people touching her things, stuff like that. These are the same people. There's something wrong with these people. Not only do they not have caregivers, but there's something really wrong with them. Like, they're tormented, they're traumatized, a lot of things throughout life. There's a lot of mental health issues, things of that nature. Those people need attention. We need to not be ignored. We need to not be harassed, and all these other things. If you want the city to get better, because I'm telling you, it's not healthy for the community in itself. I just wanted to bring my issues up to you guys because I am restrained from my own residence.
Would you conclude, please?
So there's a fraudulent sale, and that began in 2018. So those are because I go to custody. So not only can I prove that my innocence in my identity case, but I can provide the names, addresses, and aliases of all of the people from my state. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, may I just say something?
Please, go ahead.
Dawn, could you speak with her, maybe about helping her get into one of our places, and maybe police want to talk to her since she's been raped? So maybe we can get some help here, and we hear you. We hear you.
We've worked with Sophia often, and Sophia, we're glad to follow up with you in the back again as well.
Thank you, Dawn.
Okay.
Okay, and it doesn't look like we have any other cards or speakers online.
Okay.
So there.
No speakers online? Okay. We'll go then to new business, please. Madam Clerk.
Resolution 2022-56 of the City Council of the City of Fairfield endorsing support for amending the governance structure of Community Action Partnership of Solano Joint Powers Authority, and our speaker is Don Labar.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Dawn Labar, Homeless Services Manager. The item before you this evening is to seek your support for a resolution that would amend or would support the amendment of the current governing structure of CAP Solano. So as you're all familiar, CAP Solano has been around since 1999. It was first formed as the Solano Safety Net Consortium, now known as CAP Solano. And over at least the last 12 years that I've been involved with CAP Solano, there has been numerous attempts and discussions at various times for there to be a look and discussion on a potential restructure to take what is a staff level consortium and bring that up to an elevated level with the policymakers, including at this, and we've even had the discussion here at the City Council. So while that has been going on, and while there's been great momentum with CAP Solano over the last 5 or 6 years with increase in funding and countywide initiatives, in the last year there's also been a great effort led by this city for the Regional 2x2 Subcommittee that's really started to build this momentum for this countywide effort to really want to work together. So the timing is really right. There's really a great I don't know what the term is, there's this great energy around this right now, and it seems like now the energy is there and the will is there among the electeds. Like I said, this has come up many, many times in the past, but it seems like now the political will is there. So this evening's resolution comes from a summit that took place just recently, the first part of March, hosted by 2 county supervisors that are willing to be at the table with the cities and are willing to take that first step with the cities. And this is really a big thing. How many times have we been asking the county to be there with us? So we've been looking at this as kind of like a step 0. It says, yes, we're willing to look at that structure and we're willing to restructure it. We're not restructuring it tonight. We're saying, yes, we're willing to restructure it. So that's the resolution that you're being asked to approve tonight, as are all the jurisdictions here in Solano County. And I would open it up to you, and Vice Mayor Vaccaro or Council Member Panduro may have comments as representatives of the 2x2.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Dawn, and sure. Thank you, and thank you to my colleague, Councilwoman Pandoro, for being on that 2x2 with me. And I know this is, you know, we've been working on this for a while, and you know, like I said earlier, it's kind of started a very loosely structured kind of meeting, and now with the county, you know, and some people said, well, how did the county have a change of heart? I don't think necessarily they had a change of heart. I think they saw that there was a lot of momentum building in the cities to work together, and the county realized that. And you know, and I'm so glad that they were able to call that summit and able to, you know, ask us, hey, we want to work with you also. And I think it's so important. I mean, they have the resources. You know, they have resources that we don't have. They have the mental health workers. They have access to more funding. And I know we've been doing, you know, a lot of the work just, you know, in our discussions and talking about this regional approach. We realize that every city has their own issues. But if we don't attack it together, then it's just not going to work. And I think we realize that. that being, putting everybody's minds together to try to take on this incredibly serious issue, I think is really going to help. So I would really ask my colleagues to please support this, support the restructuring of this. I think it's going to be very, very important in the future. And I only see really good things coming out of this. I do. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Councilwoman Pandoro.
Thank you, and thank you, Dawn, for the background on that. And so I agree with everything that my colleague said, and I also do ask for the support in restructuring this. I think that we talk about doing something, and I think that this is the moment that we're kind of at a fork in the road, where we keep doing what we've been doing, or we do something different. And I think this allowing us to work in collaboration with the county is vital. Like, we all know that the county has the resources, they have the funding, they have, the ability to reach out and give those resources to the individuals in our community that need them. And so allowing us to restructure this and working with the county in collaboration is going to be really important. And there's a lot of benefit to the restructuring of this. And we are, again, in a position to move forward in a positive way that's going to impact a lot of lives and really give hope to our county. That's how I see it. I see it a lot of hope. I don't want to be here in 4 years and still talking about what are we going to do. I want to be here in 4 years and be able to look back and say, look what we were able to do in the last 4 years because we made this decision to work with the county and with our other jurisdictions as one whole, not as silos, as one whole. And yes, not every city has the same problems. We all have very different. I think that's something that we've all been able to identify. We all, as a city, we all have a homeless issue, but it's very different, and it looks different in every city. And I think that being able to work together along with the county will allow us to find solutions that benefit each city with how, in the areas that they most need. So, thank you.
Councilwoman Boyd, please.
Thank you, and thank you, Vice Mayor and Councilwoman Panduro. It's good to see that at about the year mark that we've gotten this together and the county is going to come on board. I was looking through, reading about history here, and I was looking at the 2015-16 Solano County Grand Jury Report. And what they suggested at that time was that we do this, that we work together. So it's about time we did. And I hope that the county really wholeheartedly will do this. I know that the summit was put together by just two, and there were others that didn't agree with all this, but I hope that we will do this all together. I also think we should go back and look at this grand jury report, which is really thorough, and look at some of the other suggestions, because I think they are good suggestions, and I think they could help us a whole lot. So thank you again, and for staff too, Dawn. I know you've been sane for a long time and trying to do this as well, and it's about time, so let's get it on.
Thank you, and I should just like to share an observation with everybody. I think our fire department and our police officers certainly have come a long way in working for realistic solutions that will stand the test of time. So we're in a prime position now to take advantage of an offer that the county has made. Thank you.
I make one final remark here. I also want to say, too, that when we do meet, I'm really proud to say that my colleagues on our city council, all support what we're doing and the initiatives that we want to bring forward. And I know everybody on this council, at some point, has touched the lives of a lot of homeless people. And I know that we all feel the same way. So I just wanted to let you know that I know both Councilwoman Pandoro and myself are proud to say that we have a council that cares. Not that the others don't, because they do too, but I think we really do, the city of Fairfield. So.
Any other comments or questions, colleagues? Okay, I'll turn it back to you then, Ms. LaBarre, please.
Gosh, start over. I would entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2022-56 of the City Council, City of Fairfield, endorsing support for amending the governance structure of Community Action Partnership of Solano Joint Powers Authority.
So moved.
It's been moved by the Vice Mayor, seconded by Councilwoman Panduro. Roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
I think we're all here.
Yeah, we're all here, but, okay.
Oh, we have to do it?
Yeah, we'll start,
Do you want to do a roll call, or do you want to just,
we'll just do it.
okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We are.
All right, would you like me to do item 2? Homeless initiatives overview and council goal priority setting.
All right. Item number 2 is really much more of a discussion tonight. And so I appreciate the council having this work session. 2 weeks ago now, or just about a little over 2 weeks ago now, you had your council retreat and goal-setting session on a Friday evening and Saturday. And we made great progress during that meeting in this council, along with some of your senior staff, coalescing around some vision and mission and goals for the organization, the number one of which, as everybody knows, was tackling homelessness and affordable housing issues. So tonight's session really is structured to dive into the topic very specifically, a little bit more around homelessness. And I think that there's some presentation and then discussion that we will facilitate, and it's broken up sort of into about four parts. We'll give you a little bit of history, going back 5 or 6 years or 7 years now, and some of the places that we've come, some of the initiatives that the city has attempted and efforts that we've put into this. We'll then present to you how all of the component pieces fit together. We have multiple departments that have their hands in addressing and managing some of the challenges that come along with homelessness. So each department will give you a little bit of an overview. We'll have a little bit of data that shows some of the ways we're measuring our efforts, and what I think is even shows a little bit of success in really addressing the challenges. We'll then get into a conversation about definition of success, and that's really kind of the strategic planning component of tonight. And as a part of that, we'll also do a SWOT analysis, or strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges, and combined with the vision and mission that you talked about at the retreat, and then now diving into a specific topic like homelessness, you're really starting to lay the foundation of a strategic plan that then is the basis of how we will address that as a staff moving forward. And then we'll get into some conversation of that plan of action. And we have some suggestions that staff will present to City Council of things that we would make our objectives for this coming year plus. But we also then want to get your feedback to make sure that we're hitting on those specific topics and that we're addressing the things that Council sees as those priorities. So just as a reminder, I used this slide a few times during the council retreat where we were talking vision, mission, goals, objectives. All of these items are on a continuum. There is input from staff and from council that goes across that continuum, with council more driving that vision and mission and goals, and staff more driving the objectives, strategies, and tactics. But of course, there is input. You are a gracious council that seeks staff input in some of that vision and mission, and certainly we want your input as it comes to some of those strategies and tactics if there are specifics that you want to see us tackling. So tonight we're really kind of, we know what the goal in terms of sort of big picture, tackling homelessness is one of those primary goals for the council, but let's now dive into a little bit more of some of those objectives that you'd like to see us accomplishing over the next year plus. I'm going to sit back down. There's a couple of sections of this that I'll be facilitating some of this conversation. We have staff from each department, so we'll be a little bit of a round table up here at the podium tonight. So bear with us as we make those changes throughout. Obviously, feel free to ask us any questions. And with that, I believe the first one up is Don LaBarre.
Hello again. Did you miss me? First, we're going to take a trip down memory lane. To Councilmember Panduro's point just a few minutes ago, we've been really working on addressing homelessness as a city. But this isn't new to us, right? We've been working on this for a long time, going all the way back to 2014. So I want to just take a few minutes and just kind of highlight some of the things that at your direction and leadership we've been able to accomplish since that time, but also to show there's also been some really significant progress since then. Starting in 2014, we formed the Quality of Life Task Force, and you formally adopted that plan, and it was through that task force that we identified homelessness as one of the top priorities and top initiatives that were impacting the quality of life for our Fairfield residents and businesses. And it was through that task force that we also then were able to form the homeless intervention team, the famous homeless intervention team. Goes all the way back to 2014. 2015, we adopted our first formal homeless strategy, and that was based on, nationwide success, proven strategies that we were, looking at throughout the nation. And at that time, we didn't really know what we were doing. We were, trying to just see what was successful in other areas. We adopted that strategy then. We established no tolerance zones for encampments in high traffic areas, and we strengthened our panhandling ordinance at that time. And we added $100,000 to our public works budget. This is, of course, pre-HART, for the encampment removal, particularly in those no tolerance zones. Fast forward to 2016. You all remember, at your direction, we conducted an evaluation and presented you with a proposal for a day center. Now, we all call them navigation centers. Back then, they were day centers. We started the Fairfield Homeless Collaborative, which met monthly, and that's, back then, probably a group of about 40 to 50 faith-based leaders and service providers met monthly and brainstormed and tried to come up with ideas on how we could collectively address homelessness. And that was when we began the lengthy process of creating the Capilano Regional Strategic Plan, the 5-year plan. In 2017, we updated our homeless strategy again to include more updated models that were, again, successful throughout the nation, but also looking more at California and more specific to California. We finalized the 5-year regional strategic plan, and at that time, I believe most, if not all of the city, well, not all, but we'll say most of the city managers in Solano County and the CAO at that time was fully on board with adopting that plan and working together, which again just shows how cyclic this can be. We adopted a couple of more ordinances, a food sharing, a food distribution ordinance, and our shopping cart ordinance. This was our first getting into the mid-pen for the Fairhavens, and of course 200 East Tabor, which we'll all never forget, providing a loan to the developer at that time, trying to create affordable housing and permanent supportive housing options at that time. 2018, 310 Beck, we lost our operator who had been there for many, many years, and started a very lengthy process for a new operator. We also declared an emergency shelter crisis, which was required by the state for us to be eligible for millions of dollars in HEAP funds. Fairfield did this along with, again, most of the cities in Solano County. And we, along with all of the cities in Solano County, entered into an interjurisdictional MOU to expand our just budding coordinated entry system. 2019, we finally got a new operator for 310 Beck. We were able to take the facility from about 40 beds, they were averaging about 40 participants per day, to now they have got 90 to 100. And we finally approved the creation of our housing services department. 2020, of course, that was when COVID came to visit, and we were able then to create the Homeless Services Division in the city manager's office, adopted a couple of more ordinances, no sleeping downtown, and in the Civic Center, to really alleviate that stress on the businesses that were really hitting us pretty hard. We adopted the temporary shelter permit to allow for ancillary use of property for additional shelter opportunities. We created the COVID-19 temporary emergency shelter, which gave us 50 beds for COVID. And we approved $600,000 out of our low mod funds to rehab the vacant 710 and 724 Ohio Street for future use. 2021, we extended our COVID project for another 25 beds. We conducted a really in-depth gaps analysis, which we had been wanting to do for several years. We created a pilot pop-up shelter for 9 beds. We formed the ad hoc 2x2 for the regional homeless work group. We closed the loan on the Fairhaven Commons. We finally got a comprehensive case management called Apricot 360, we all love. We got a new operator for Ohio Street, Change and New Beginnings, and they opened at the end of December, so we've got now another 18 beds there, including TBRA units, and we implemented our first Homeless to Work initiative. So let's just take a quick minute. I just want to again get, and I know you've seen this slide before, but I want to just again give you some context of where Fairfield falls in the biennial homeless point in time count. And again, just remember, this is just a snapshot in time. So will we ever be able to do a full, thorough, accurate homeless count? Not really sure. This is the way HUD requires us to do it for HUD funding. So it's a 4-hour window every 2 years. The last time we were able to do it was in 2019. 2021 would have been our next one. However, with COVID, we requested a waiver due to COVID, and back then I think the surge at that time was again really high. So the most recent one we did was in February of 2022. We won't have those numbers probably until about May. So these are our most recent numbers. But I want to show you again where Fairfield falls. 277 out of 1,100 or so in Solano County and 151,000 in California. So for the next few slides, you're going to be hearing from a few of us. We really want to show you how we work collaboratively within the city, and how one department or division obviously cannot manage, address, respond to homelessness here and the impacts independently. It really does take a team, and we follow the Quality of Life Task Force model that you approved back in 2014. So we work really closely, and that's the Homeless Services Division, the Homeless Intervention Team, our Homeless Engagement and Response Team, Public Works through HART, and our Housing Services Department. And that's all under the leadership of the City Manager's Office. So now what we'll do is we'll just kind of give you a snapshot and a high-level overview of each of our departments and divisions and our roles and responsibilities in that big picture. We'll start with our homeless services, because that's the most amazing, obviously. So the mission for our homeless services division is to permanently reduce homelessness in Fairfield, and this almost comes almost verbatim from our most recent homeless strategy. So it's protecting the health and safety of our residents, increasing housing opportunities, enhancing the system of care, improving public policy and engagement, and strengthening regional capacity to address homelessness, all in coordination with our local service providers, stakeholders, and those living unsheltered. We can't do it without each and every one of those entities. What you see there is a picture of our dynamic trio. As you remember, we did lose one of our staff in October, but we were very blessed to have Renee come join us in a temporary position through May, and hopefully we'll be able to get a recruitment going here pretty soon. But I do want to just take a quick minute and introduce them. And I don't know if, of course she did. So Selena Sanchez, and in the back, for those of you who have not met yet, Renee Parham. And I'm not kidding when I say she's like a tornado, and just the fact she comes back every day is just incredible to me. So here's the organizational structure for homeless services, and we have Renee right now in our vacant admin tech position. And hopefully, again, like I said, we'll be able to get that recruitment going here pretty soon. This is, to me, is the critical piece for homeless services. This is really for the city, the central intake for homeless issues. And think of homeless services as really the overall umbrella policy, administrative type functioning for homeless services. We're not really the boots on the ground so much as we are policy and funding. And primarily what we're seeing, and again, our division was just, I mean, we were formerly the Quality of Life Division. We kind of morphed into the Homeless Services Division, even though we were, working a lot on homeless initiatives anyway. We really have been able to formalize a lot of policies and procedures since then, and make things a lot more consistent. But now we are able to really provide a lot more consistency with our funding and our programs. So, for example, identifying, securing, and administering, overseeing the funding for the homeless resources, particularly the shelters. That's been a really critical and important piece that we've taken on. Right now, we're administering 5 different programs and the funding. That's including 3 different city CDBG funded programs, a PLHA, Permanent Local Housing Asset funded program, the Homeless to Work initiative, and now the Ohio Street operations. So, and that's really cumbersome because with the funding, it's government funding, so it's not like you can just write a blank, a private check and hand over money. No, it's just not that simple. There's a lot of monitoring and a lot of hands-on, making sure that the funding is being used for eligible use. We have to be good stewards of government dollars. So, for example, Renee participates in either weekly or bi-weekly case meetings with our providers to ensure that, again, the funds are being used eligibly and that the participants are moving through the program. So it's pretty involved. So again, we're also the reps for Cap Solano and our COC board. We're really primarily driven to increase shelter and temporary housing opportunities, and again, create those consistent policies. Really serve as a liaison to the outside agencies and stakeholders. We do a lot of problem solving. We notice it's really a lot of. Sometimes it feels like putting out fires, but it's a lot of engagement with whether it's our vulnerable folks who are looking for services, and we're also seeing more and more that we're the go-to for a lot of places in the county, not just Fairfield. So we're dealing with a lot more of that, and we're really trying to focus more now on addressing the disproportionately by the Black, Indigenous, and people of color homeless population by removing those barriers. So that's really something we've been starting to focus on in the last 6 to 8 months, and that's been a startling eye-opener.
Dawn, could you touch on what some of those barriers are?
Well, that's exactly what we're getting into. There's been 2 regional groups that have been formed. The REAL, okay, Selena's still gone. It's an acronym, and I can't remember it now. I'm sorry. Yeah, and I haven't given you all an update on that in a while, and I need to, but the intent of the REAL group and the lived experience group is to actually start digging into the why, because we can tell you that there's, a 19% African American population in Fairfield, but that 49% of our homeless are African American. But getting to the why, if we don't start addressing the why of that, then how are we going to change it? So that's what we're starting to try to get into. And so these 2 regional groups that have started in the Bay Area are starting to form that. So that's something that we've been really trying to be engaging in, because then we can start forming those policies. Is it a prevention thing before, catching them before they become homeless, or is it the barrier for them to exit homeless? And that's what we don't know yet. It's too, I hate to say it's too early yet, but I hate to say that. Okay, so now I want to turn it over to Lieutenant Kresha, who is going to talk about the homeless intervention team.
All right. Mr. Mayor, council members, my name is Josh Kresha. I'm a police lieutenant with the Fairfield Police Department. I currently oversee our Special Enforcement Division, which encompasses 3 different units: our traffic unit, our youth services unit, and our homeless intervention team. So, as Don mentioned earlier when we were taking a look back historical, the Fairfield Police Department's homeless intervention team was first formed in 2014. You guys authorized an increase in staffing in our police department, and that first team was one sergeant at the time, Dan Marshall, and Officer Joe Uchishiba. And they were the foundation for our team. Since then, that team has increased in size, and we'll go over that. But what hasn't changed is our mission. As you can see up here, the homeless intervention team is dedicated to improving the quality of life for all citizens by working with local stakeholders to positively impact the homeless crisis. As all of us are going to keep saying, individually we do not have the solution for homeless crisis, and it takes all of us to work together. So bringing in those local stakeholders has pretty much been the key to our success. So our current staffing, as we have it now again, from 2014 where we had Sergeant Marshall and Officer Uchishiba, we've increased to the current Sergeant, Sean Tim, and 4 officers, Officer Parker Whipple, Rolando Sanchez, David Neal, and Alex Aldridge. In 2018, we increased the team again by including a police social services coordinator. That's a master social worker, Marianne Dawkins Patagella. And then in 2021, we added community service officer Jessica Vinatieri to the team. So our roles and responsibilities for the homeless intervention team: first one, outreach. One of our most successful programs is HOPE. That's a homeless outreach pop-up event. And picture a resource center that we take out to the streets. So we coordinate all of our government and non-government organizations I'll talk about here in a second, and we will set up a resource center in a parking lot here in town or at one of our local parks, and we will bring people there and take the word and the services to them on the street. We'll get them there. We'll give them, for the morning time, it's donuts and coffee. Afternoon, we've got plans for hot dogs, and we're going to get them there and get them the services that they need. We've also been partnering with Solano County Mental Health. As many of you guys know, that many of those people that are facing homelessness or in danger of being homeless have mental health or chemical dependency issues. And a lot of them aren't able to get the help they need. They're just not functionally able to do that. So we partner with Solano County Mental Health to take physicians' assistants out to the streets and reach out and not only diagnose, but then treat people there. And a lot of times that's the first step in getting them stabilized to get them into a shelter. We also recently started working with our partners at Solano County Probation. Now, some of these individuals that are out on the streets, they're on probation for whatever criminal violation they had. And our probation department has resources available to them, but once again, a lot of these individuals lack the ability to go take that first step to get out there and make that contact with their probation officer, which results in them getting warrants, tying up police officers, getting booked, and it's just an endless cycle of incarceration. So we're taking the probation officers actually out with us and taking them to where those individuals are and getting them hopefully the help that they need. Response. Obviously, the police department is often the first responders for homeless issues. So we have our calls for service. So that could come from individuals calling the non-emergency number of the police department and reaching our dispatch center. It comes from all of you. When we get council concerns from the city manager's office, even notifications from the My Fairfield app. And we get those notifications and we dispatch officers out to the scene. And then there's also on-view activity. And that is where officers take a proactive approach. They see an issue and they address it right there before someone even calls it in. And we'll talk about those numbers a little bit later. Encampments, obviously a big concern here in Fairfield. So the homeless intervention team officers go out, they'll post camps for cleanup. They'll coordinate with our partners at Public Works, the HEART team. They'll get services out there. So we had a recent cleanup down in, off Beck and Cordelia Road just the other day. And we actually, we partner with our friends at probation, mental health, Solano County Social Services, and get them and actually take them to the encampments. Hey, before we're going to clean this up, we're going to post it. Yes, that, the encampment's got to get cleaned, but maybe this is the time it takes, to get them off the street. Sheltering, through Dawn's team at Homeless Services Division, she's secured numerous shelter beds for us to use, and which is great because, it's not a one-size-fits-all. Everybody has a different need when it comes to homelessness. And we utilize both local and regional all over Solano County, all over Northern California, trying to find the right place for the right person. And then partnering with other organizations. So obviously we work hand in hand with HEART. We work, with encampment cleanup, with Dawn and the sheltering and securing of beds, with Housing Services Division, Housing Services Department, and facilitating TBRA, tenant-based rental assistance, vouchers for some of our people that we've been working very closely with. We bring all of them together in our quarterly homeless roundtable, where we bring all these resources together and just open up those lines of communication and, see what everybody's experiencing and where they're at and what we can all do to work together. Pending your questions, I will be followed by Gary Sponsler with Public Works.
Very much, Lieutenant.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Gary Sponsler, the newly promoted manager of the Landscape Division. I'm also overseeing HEART currently. What we have up here is Public Works mission, which HEART's mission falls right in line with that as far as prompt, courteous service and maintaining cleanliness throughout the city. On the left there is our group of 4. We started with 2 in 2017. They weren't called HEART yet. They were just utility workers that were out cleaning as much as they could. And then we added 1 more about a year ago, and now we have 4 total. The 4th just started about 8 months ago. On the right there is just the keeping Fairfield beautiful logo on the side of the truck. As far as our staffing, Mike Gray is our superintendent, myself as a manager. We have a vacancy in the supervisor position, and then our 4 amazing HEART workers, Rick, Brandon, Francisco, and Juan. And then some of our responsibilities. Before HEART was formed, like I said, Public Works, we just used our storm drains crew to go out basically once a month to clean up creeks and camps that were throughout the town. We also did debris pickup on a monthly basis using different crews throughout the corporation yard, which took away from their production. So the HEART team coming along was a huge plus for us. Once they did come along, roadside debris, illegal dumping became a daily activity for us. Customer-driven, work orders come in, employees for the city drive around and see it. They call in and we shoot out and clean up the city. And the shopping cart pickup, once we got that ordinance in place, we were able to further enforce picking up shopping carts throughout the city, again, making it a cleaner city. With HEART's objectives being roadsides clear of debris and safe passes for residents down sidewalks, through parks, etc. And then the camp and creek cleanups. Public Works and the police department have a great relationship. Like Josh just said, HIT goes out and posts the camps, offers services. HEART comes in afterwards, doing the cleanups, removing trash and debris wherever it is. Our objectives there, keeping the waterways clean, keeping public property clean. And mine was short and sweet, so this is the last slide. But our goals: keeping the waterways clean in our city, keeping our parks and trails clean, and our roadways safe for passage for the residents of the city. That's all I had.
I could ask you one question.
Yes.
When you do the cleanup, do any of the homeless help you participate in cleanup?
There are some, yes. Yes, we can hand out bags. Quite a few of them, actually. We give them bags and they will help participate.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Good evening, council members. Latan Jones, Director of Housing Services. The mission of the Housing Service Department is to revitalize communities, provide safe and healthy housing, provide affordable and mixed income housing, and to provide rental subsidies to extremely low to low income individuals and families in Fairfield. Now, our housing department is actually broken, it's composed of 12 individuals, including myself, and it's broken up into two major divisions: the Housing Authority that provides rental subsidies in the form of Section 8 vouchers, as well as tenant-based rental assistance, and the Housing Services Department, our Housing Services Division that actually includes the balance of our services, and that includes the CDBG program, our rental rehabilitation program, our ADU program, our housing trust fund, and so on and so forth. Now, what I have done is actually highlighted some of the positions and individuals that actually perform services in relationship to homelessness. We have our housing division manager within our housing authority, one of our specialists within the housing authority. We have our senior management analyst in the housing services division, our housing project manager, as well as our housing construction project manager. They all work in areas that actually work to address issues with regard to homelessness, as well as myself. Now, in housing, we focus on all areas of providing housing in order to be able to address homelessness as well as resources. However, our primary emphasis is those that are at risk of homeless, and we define that as those individuals that are about 30% or below the area median income. And for instance, in the city of Fairfield, for a household of two, that would be about $23,000 a year in income. Now, what we utilize in order to be able to determine some of the targets in order to be able to address housing for those that are at risk of homeless are two things. One we already talked about, which is the point in time count. And as Don has already identified, we have about 277 people based upon the last point in time count. And then we extrapolated from that information to find out that there was about 165 people that actually would qualify as at risk of homelessness. And then the second area is we look at the actual RENA allocation, and that's a state mandated allocation of housing that is to be developed within each of the different counties and regions within California. And for those that are extremely low or at risk of homelessness, that has been identified as 389 housing units that would need to be developed over an 8-year period, and that would be 2022 through 2030. And so we take in consideration those two key major things. Once again, the RENA that indicates that we need to develop about 389 housing units over the span of 8 years, as well as the point in time count, which identifies a number of people that we have in Fairfield that are at risk of homeless. Now, in order to be able to carry out activities for homelessness, these are some of the programs that we actually utilize. One of the programs is our housing development efforts, and in that particular program, we seek to try to develop what we consider to be permanent supportive housing. And for me, I sort of look at things in 3 steps. There's shelter, there's transitional housing, and then there's permanent supportive housing, which will allow a person to be able to live long-term with services. And so with regard to that, as has already been mentioned, we're able to close on the Fairhaven project this year, and that will allow us to be able to have 44 units that would be directed toward individuals that are at risk of homeless, and that would be permanent supportive housing. We have not closed on the EAH project, but that project will provide 20 more units for those that are at risk of homelessness. And then we're also working on Parkside Flats, which is a 168-unit project, but we would have approximately about 5 or 6 units that would be directed toward those that are at risk of homelessness. And then we also use our tenant-based rental assistance program. That program is where we target, it's over a program that spans over a term of about 24 months or 2 years. And we provide rental assistance, provide in terms of the actual rental subsidy for those households, as well as security deposits in order to be able to help those individuals get into housing. And we consider that our transitional housing, or our second tier of housing that would be available for individuals that are homeless. We also use our Section 8 program. What we were able to do, and council was able to help us approve in October, was an actual modification of our preferences. And what we did with our preferences is that we actually identified any individual that would be in the tenant-based rental assistance that had a fixed income could actually get into the actual Section 8 program and be prioritized so they can rise to the top of the list, and we can actually get them in permanent housing. So there's basically 2 tracks that we will take when we are dealing with those individuals in the tenant-based rental assistance. Either they will transition to one of the permanent supportive housing projects that we actually are helping to develop and sponsor, or they would actually be moved to the Section 8 program, both of which we're going to make sure that they're going to get into permanent supportive housing. And then we have our CDBG allocations. Now, within our CDBG program, we actually provide resources in order to be able to address various levels of housing. For instance, we provided about $50,000 to Shelter Solano to provide case management and employment services. We provided about $7,200 to Lady of Mount Carmel, and they are providing more motel nights, temporary motel nights for people that are experiencing homelessness. We also provided resources to the Homeless Service Division, and we provided about $50,000, and they are dealing with some of the barriers that actually lead individuals and keep them in the homeless predicament. We've also provided in the Homeless Service Department about $206,000 where we are helping them with those 5 shelter beds that they have with Shelter Solano. And then finally, we have special projects. And special projects would be projects by which we, like the Ohio Street project, where we are actually providing housing in various levels, which would be emergency housing as well as transitional housing. And we're using our tenant-based rental assistance program and our CDBG programs in order to be able to fund those efforts. And so here, given that I have already indicated in terms of a couple of things, areas that we focus on with regard to units that we are trying to develop, as well as people that we are trying to assist with regard to the point in time, with regard to the permanent supportive housing and the Fairhaven project, that's 44 units there, that will be able to assist 150 people. With our tenant-based rental assistance program, which we consider our transitional housing, right now we have about 18 units that are actually receiving the tenant-based rental assistance. We have room for about 12 more, but with an overall goal of about 30. But that we can assist about 49 people with the 18. If we utilize 12 more, then we'll be able to assist more individuals. And then we have our emergency housing. There's 2 units, and within those 2 units, and this is at Ohio Street, there are 8 rooms. And in those rooms, an individual can stay up to 90 days. And so there will be a rotation about 4 times a year, and that will allow us to be able to touch 104 individuals. So that allows us about 303 people that we would be able to touch with regard to housing opportunities with 64 units. And then finally, within our CDBG program, we have our contracts, as I indicated, with Lady of Mount Carmel. With that particular program, as of December 2021, they were able to serve 13 individuals. Their goal is to actually serve 45. So at about a halfway mark, they are just a little bit under half in terms of what they have performed thus far.
Did you say you have a contract with the church?
Yes, we have, within our CDBG program, we have subcontracts with each of the entities that we fund, and so we're funding them. And in that particular program, which is the motel nights, it's 45 people that they're actually supposed to be able to provide resources for. Again, within the Homeless Service Division, by which we are funding activities for the relief of barriers toward homeless. Their overall goal is 25. As of December 2021, they were able to serve 14 individuals. So they're above halfway there at the halfway mark. Then with Shelter Solano, their program is to provide case management and employment services. Their overall goal is 140 people. They have served at the end of December 21, 154, so they have far exceeded their goal. And then finally, emergency shelter with regard to individuals for the beds. There were 20 individuals that are targeted for that particular program, and they had served 16 by the end of December 2021. So primarily, most of the programs are on track in order to be able to reach their goals, in order to be able to provide services for individuals that are experiencing homelessness. Thank you.
Any comments or questions for the
Questions? Yes.
Okay. Councilman Tim, please.
Yeah, thank you. Is it fair to say that if somebody is homeless in Fairfield and wants help and wants shelter, that you have the capacity to give them that?
Right now, just based upon the point in time count, and I will indicate that that was done in 2019. So just looking at those numbers, we are creating resources to be able to provide methods for them to actually be addressed. Now, I will say this, I pointed out the actual housing units there, but I also want to point out that Lady of Mount Carmel, there's hotel nights there with regard to emergency shelter with housing services. There's shelter beds there. So I would definitely say, yes, there should be sufficient amount of rooms and our shelter opportunities in order to be able to address individuals that are experiencing homeless. However, I would also add that it's extremely important that we actually couple that with case management services so that we can make sure that we are dealing with some of the issues and our barriers that have led to homelessness, so that those individuals can also be tracked to be able to go through the varying levels: shelter, transitional, and then permanent supportive housing.
Right, now I get that, but I just want to confirm that if I was homeless and I got in touch with somebody from Homeless Services, that you could, in a very relatively short amount of time, find me a place to stay.
I would say that we have several resources available, and I believe that we could pretty much be confident that we would have an ability to find you some place to stay.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Do you have any idea, I know it's still early to ask this question, but any idea how the city church is handling the folks who are invited to sleep in their cars at night? They can shower and they can be fed inside the church. Do you have any idea how that's going so far?
I don't have information with regard to that, but I know that there are varying programs. I believe Don might actually have information with regard to that.
Okay. Well, thank you for your presentation.
No problem.
Ms. LeBlanc?
Mayor, just to respond to that question, thank you. We're currently working with City Church right now because they are not permitted to be operating the way they are. So we're working with them to make sure that they're operating under our temporary shelter permit. So Sulina is working very closely with them to get all of the proper avenues addressed so that we can make sure they're operating safely for both the participants, but also the surrounding neighborhoods. So we love the work they do. We want them to obviously keep doing that. We just need to make sure they're operating under the permit.
Follow-up question, do you have any idea how many of the homeless have children? What percentage perhaps?
I could tell you if I looked back at our gaps analysis, but I don't have the number handy. But we do have some good data on that. I could get back to you with that.
Yeah, I think that you need to share that when you can with council.
I'll get
please.
that to our city manager and he can share that with you.
Mr. Mayor, I think I can answer your question about that. I work closely with them at City Church, and they have about 8 cars that come in daily right now, and they are showering, they're feeding them, and they do have a navigation center there already, so they're helping with those things too. So it's working out really well. There is the issue of the city wants them to be, up and above board or whatever, but it's working well. Yeah.
Mayor?
Councilman Tonneson, please.
I have a number of questions. Do you want to do it in the middle of the presentation or wait until it's over? Don't we have like 6 or 8 pages left?
Yeah, but we're happy to take your questions at this point in time. I mean, we're data, and then we're about to get into just overall discussion, so if you want questions at this point, then have at it.
Okay. So starting off with Dawn's presentations, you have a bunch of vacancies. When do you anticipate those being filled? Or are you in the process of doing that now?
Yeah, 4 of those vacancies are the homeless navigator positions. And so maybe 2 months ago or so, we had an internal meeting and discussed whether or not we proceed with filling those positions. Obviously, tonight, council authorized the resolution for the modification of the Capilano JPA board and supporting that. And so ultimately, the goal of that effort is to regionalize some of these services and look towards building an organization that's going to provide those regional navigation services. And so strategically, we've held off on those positions and hiring those positions, because if this becomes a regional approach, which I think is part of the intent, then that organization that gets formed would ultimately be the appropriate place for those types of positions to be housed.
You couldn't fill those now, and then when we go regional, those people could transition into the...
Well, that's a discussion to have, but I would prefer typically not. I mean, I don't know what that organization's focus would be, and I mean, really, I don't want to bring people on short term and lay them off.
I thought we approved those positions already. Lieutenant Kresha, probably Lieutenant Kresha, on the camp removals, when we have belongings that are valuable or have some value, where do we keep those, and how long do we keep them?
So we do have a process for that. Anything that's of value, either that we identify on our own, say if the encampment is abandoned, and we go through and there's something that's obviously of value, we're going to save that. We have a special storage location secured here at the Fairfield Police Department that we keep it there, and per law, we keep that for 90 days.
90.
Or if someone is there at an encampment, say they don't want to go to a shelter, or they do go to a shelter and, hey, but I can't take my, you name it, my stereo with me to this shelter, we'll hold it for them. And in those cases, we're trying to get them into more permanent establishments, so we'll hold it even longer.
Okay. And then probably Latan, what if we don't hit RENA numbers?
Right now, there is not a penalty.
There's not a penalty?
Right now, there is not a penalty. Two cities that actually don't reach those RENA numbers. However, there has been talk about actually creating penalties. And what I want to make sure that we're doing here in Fairfield as your housing services director is I'm going to make sure that we're doing everything we possibly can in order to be able to reach those numbers. So despite if there's a penalty or not, I'm going to push to try to make sure we're actually developing housing in correlation with those RENA objectives.
And TBRA, where do those funds come from?
Those funds are home funds. And so the government, those are federal funds, those are federal home funds that we're allowed to be able to utilize for rental assistance.
And then how many Section 8 vouchers do we have? And what is normal? I don't know what a normal amount of Section 8 vouchers is.
Well, each region gets a certain allot of Section 8 vouchers. Here in Fairfield, we have 887 Section 8 vouchers in our total portfolio. And in most of the cases, when a person actually enters the Section 8 program, more than likely they're going to be at 50 or 30% of the area median income in order to be able to get on the Section 8 program.
Okay. And then my last question, and then I'll shut up, is Ohio Street, is it full up now?
Actually, it's not filled up at this point, but we have cleared the way, and right now we're trying to, there's 2 of the actual tenant-based rental assistance units that are not full. One is actually full now. We've been supplying them with individuals that they have the opportunity to consider and determine if they will lease those individuals up or not.
And all the rooms are operational now?
Everything is open to actually be operated, yes.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
No problem. Thank you.
Councilman Tim, please.
Yeah, thank you. I have a question. Is the Fairhaven Housing Project, does it prioritize ADA accessibility?
Actually, there are some units that it will prioritize for people that have disabilities. However, their primary emphasis is individuals that are actually homeless.
Well, I'm talking about people that are homeless or at risk of being homeless, because if we're building something brand new, I'm not aware of anything that we currently have in our inventory that would give priority or be accessible to somebody that needs ADA accessibility. Does that make
Well,
sense?
Yes. Within every project, I mean, the government generally has a standard of about 5% of the units that should always be accessible to individuals that have disabilities. And so every project that will be approved will operate with that particular parameter. So
Okay.
there are some, absolutely, that will be accessible.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, sir.
No problem.
Vice Mayor Vaccaro, please.
Lieutenant, question, so 165 out of the 277 are at risk, correct? That's the number you have here?
Correct.
So for the 165, where do you target them as far as where they would go?
All of those would fall within 30% or below the area median income. So for instance, they could be targeted towards the transitional housing, which would be the tenant-based rental assistance. They could also be targeted toward permanent housing. So it would depend on the stage at which they're at in terms of which particular program they would actually go toward.
Okay, and they're all homeless at this point?
Yes, are at risk of homeless, and basically that means they don't have stable housing and their income is 30% or below the area median income.
So would they go to the shelter first? That would be the first thing
If
to
they are,
encourage?
yeah, I will say if they're immediately homeless and they have not been tracked or otherwise, then more than likely they would go to shelter first just to get off the street, and then also to get in programming.
Councilman Panduro, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Going back to our arena numbers, the Waterscape apartments and the ones across from Food Max, I can't remember the name of them, you know, how we had made them into affordable housing, or do those apartment complexes count into our arena numbers? And if so, when would we be able to count them into the?
Well, actually, those do not count towards our arena numbers, and there was some pushes to try to make units that was captured, but those programs at this point, they do not count toward our arena numbers. Any other questions?
Any other comments or questions, colleagues? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I am back again. First, I just want to address Councilmember Tim about his question earlier. If homeless Chuck came to the police department or to one of our outreach teams and said, I'm ready, I want shelter, I am confident that between myself, our team, housing services, and homeless services, that we can find you a place. We find people every day, and that's when I talk about not just our local shelters, but regional. You know, we've taken people to Stockton, to Salvation Army, down to Delancey Street in San Francisco. You know, if people want the help, we're going to get it for them.
I have no doubt, because I think maybe you can see where this is going, because what I'm going to say, and I don't know the exact time to say it, but we'll just get it out now. If you want help, we'll find you help. What do we do with the ones that don't want our help and refuse our help? I think that's probably why we're here, but I'll save that. But you've answered my question exactly the way that I hoped that you would, and that it's factual. And then number two, and I'll bring it up now, is once we get good at this, because it looks like we're getting good at giving people shelter if they need it, how do we keep then other cities from bringing their problem children to someplace that's successful, because we are successful? And you can't answer that, and I don't think we can too, but just keep that in the back of your mind, because, I mean, I always look at what's the worst thing that can happen and work up. I find it safer that way, so, but you can kind of see where I'm going. And then one more question, since I'm on a roll, and David, you can start thinking about this. If you can just give me a figure, ballpark, within $1 million, how much we have spent doing what we've done since, I'll make it easy, say 2018. And just, you don't have to answer it now, but just kind of start noodling it. I'm just really kind of curious to see how many millions and millions and millions of dollars. So, okay.
They sent that to us already in a big packet of stuff a couple weeks ago that I think Dawn helped put together, and it was more than $1 million. It was a lot.
Yeah, more like 4.5. But let me If you want to give me 5 minutes, we'll let Lieutenant Kresha go through some of the numbers. While he's doing that, I'll try to pull up that
Yeah,
number.
and like I said, just within $1 million, and I have a reason, obviously, for asking, so. Josh, go ahead, sir.
All right.
Well, I have a quick question too, Lieutenant, and maybe City Attorney on this one. So one of the reasons that we're given that we cannot shut down every encampment in the city of Fairfield is because we have to have shelter for everybody. I'm hearing tonight we do, so why aren't we shutting down every one of them? That's to go along with the Boise, Idaho decision and the Ninth Circuit, and we did try to take it to the Supreme Court, and they wouldn't hear it. So my question is, isn't it time we start moving on that?
I can answer. All right, Councilmember Moy, you're absolutely correct with the Boise decision, and I will tell you that we will go and we get a call, or either, again, through our dispatch center or from any of you, we get notification. We are, as soon as a hit officer is available, we're marking an encampment. Now, some of them, the process takes a little bit, and we're dealing with people, and, our officers, have a lot of responsibilities. Hart has a ton of responsibilities, so sometimes it's not that minute we've got somebody on their way, and then not only do you hit, but we also partner with our officers that are on patrol. They have the ability to mark encampments. They do it constantly. They've got the resource pamphlets. We've given presentations to our officers. So if we get notification either on public or private property, we will go out and address that encampment. Again, sometimes the wheels take a little bit, not just legally, but because it's the right thing to do, and we want to offer those services. But I promise that we will respond to any call, any complaint, anything that we get, and we will address those encampments.
I appreciate that, and I know that's true. What I'm saying is, the folks out there that are doing it, living like that, they're not getting the message. What I mean is that we do have shelter for every one of them, and that they need to not put their tent up anymore, because it's not legal here.
Right, and no, I agree. Obviously, the easiest one, the people that come to the front counter and say, "Hey, I want help," those are the easy ones. We all know that, and it's the people that still have the either no desire or the inability to come in that obviously we focus our resources on, and that's where probation and our partnerships with mental health and all of our other stakeholders come together to try to kind of help them see the light and get there. And we have people that have set up a camp 3, 4, 5 times, and you know what? Maybe on that 5th time, I say, "Hey, aren't you tired of us throwing away your stuff? Give us a shot. Just go try this shelter just one time." And sometimes that's what it takes. And so we have seen success.
100% get it. I think we need to get the word out, though. We can politically. Up until now, we were under the impression that we didn't have a place for every single person who's homeless and out there. And that's, what Boise says. You cannot make them move unless you have some place for them to go. Well, it sounds like we do.
Yes, and obviously, as I'm going to get into the stats, you'll see that Housing Services Division has done a tremendous job in securing shelter space available. You can see in 2019, 2020 up on this chart that I'm going to dig into, we didn't have that, and so we were
Right.
bounded by those limitations, and more than anything, we're always going to respect people's rights, and we're going to do the right thing. And when we didn't have those spots available, we had to take that into account. We have the ability now to offer shelter, and we're going to do everything we can to help people get there.
Yeah. Okay. You guys are amazing, and I'm excited to hear this. I mean, that we've done so well in this city that we do have shelter space for everybody, and that there's no reason for them to be there, and so they're there illegally now. According to the Boise decision, the way that I read it, but I'm not an attorney, I just play one when I'm up here. So, there you go.
You've been very patient, Councilwoman Bertani. Your turn, please.
Thank you. Since we're throwing things out there, here's where I want to give my concern is that as we're sitting here receiving this information, you have city council members who for the first time is hearing this stuff. You're having city council members for the first time who's hearing about Lady of Mount Carmel and the housing stuff they do there and the hotel nights or whatever. So my point is this. I think that we need a centralized hub of information. As you know, for almost a year now, I've been meeting with the Clergy Action Network, the local pastors here in Fairfield, the senior pastors. And one of the big concerns that they have that we just recently discussed, they don't know what to do when homeless people come to the church. So the people in the front office have no centralized piece of information or website that they can go to access all the things we're talking about. If I don't know about it, they certainly don't. And so one of the things we need to do is to let the left hand know what the right hand is doing in Fairfield. We need to have a centralized hub of information where if somebody goes to St. Mark's or to Bethel Community Church, that person in that office who's receiving these people, and they're on the front lines, this is where a lot of folks go. They need to be able to say, we have this service here, that service there, here's where you can go, here's where you can call, and we don't have that. So we have a lot of stuff, a lot of information that is not being used efficiently. And we need an efficient way to share this information. Organized, up-to-date, simple to access. And number two, we need a navigation center. You know what? Because we can, and I love, the work you're doing is amazing and awesome. But as soon as you clean up a camp, another one goes there. And there's been an encampment on Interstate 80 behind Kaiser Permanente building. It's so dangerous, it makes me cringe every time I drive past it. So, and there's even a barbecue pit set up next to the camp. So, you know, I'm saying that we can't keep shutting down the camp, it opens over here. We need a navigation center with a comprehensive approach to direct navigating people to the services that they need to get better. You know, a lot of, like we've already all talked about, a lot of homeless folks, they do have mental health problems. And so if they're not mentally well, they can't get to the stuff that we have for them. But with a centralized navigation center like the one we saw when we went to San Francisco to the Tenderloin, yeah, like the real deal on homelessness, amazing navigation center. And there are companies out there, Twitter is one of them, who actually help fund this navigation center. And it's amazing because it's one place that people know to go. If I need help, I can go here. And they're triaged. There they get all the services that are available to them. It can begin there. But until people know, like the homeless people who need help, where do they go? If they go to the churches don't know. You know, if they call me, I know some, and I'm just going to say, call Don. But that's not the way to do that. You know, so I would propose that as a discussion point tonight, and I'll be really glad when we get to the discussion point tonight so we can start dealing with some of these issues and think differently and do differently. And I'm not directing this totally at you. I'm just saying, since Chuck said we could throw things out, so I'm just I'm just throwing stuff out too. I'll stop for now, but I'll be glad to hear how the city council is going to be getting down to the bone of these issues that we need to get to, because we can't keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result. And everybody's working really hard, but are we working really smart?
Thank you.
That was rhetorical. You go ahead now.
Okay. All right. So I'm back again. I just want to talk some numbers. Latan talked, gave some numbers from his side. And I just want to kind of give you guys, from our point of view, numbers don't tell the whole story, but they definitely give us an insight into where we're at. So for the last 2 years, I just wanted to kind of highlight some things. Our calls for service, we talked about that earlier. That's our people calling our dispatch center or calls or concerns from council or the city manager's office or My Fairfield app. In 2020, we had 2,789, and in 2021, 3,871. And before you think, oh gosh, Lieutenant, our homeless population is, our problem is getting even worse. I go back to our pit count that actually shows it's going down, when statewide it's going up. And I attribute that is to more increased communication. People see, as we've increased the size of our homeless intervention team, and we've increased our coordination with homeless services, housing services, and HART, people see us responding to these encampments. They see us addressing these situations, and people are more inclined to call us. When, if there's already 10 tents on the sidewalk and you see an 11th one, you just say, oh, well, you keep driving because you just accept that's the way things are. But no, in Fairfield, as we've addressed this and we've come out, now people see one tent and they are calling us, they're calling you, they're sending emails, and we're responding. And, so again, I'll attribute that to just a greater sense of communication between us and the community. On-view activity, we talked about this. This is officers going out and just being proactive, our homeless intervention team, and identifying issues before someone even calls on it. So in 2020, we had 381. Now, again, we're in the middle of COVID and all the regulations that came along with that. But again, with an expansion in our homeless intervention team, 3,542. And when I look at that compared to our calls for service, 4 officers, a sergeant, and a community service officer are almost proactively addressing issues as they come up, as much as a city of 115,000 is reporting them. And I think that's noteworthy. We look at successfully sheltered. 2020, again, challenges. 19 to 20, we didn't have those spaces available, and homeless services is able to secure beds, and we responded. We have the bodies, we have the place, we're going to put people in those. And so you see a tremendous increase in successfully sheltered from 2020, where we had 11, to 146 in 2021, and that's just tremendous, I think. And then finally, our homeward bound, probably my favorite thing. There's great case management that goes on at our shelters and everything, but sometimes, nothing beats getting taken care of by your mom and dad or your aunt or uncle or that loved one, and getting them off the street and getting them into, breaking that cycle, breaking those ties that they may have here. And, we've through a grant from Kaiser Permanente, we actually utilize that to reunite people with those families. So in 2020, 16 people. In 2021, another 18. And we've already got probably, I would say, about 10 so far this year. So it's just doing nothing but expanding. And, when we do this, and the last thing we're doing is just shuttling someone off to be, another organization's issue. We meet with we talk with the family, we set up their travel, we even give them money. If you didn't have any money and we're putting you on a plane, train, or bus, and it's a 2 or 3 day trip to your family in Arkansas, how are you going to eat? And we're able to leverage those funds from Kaiser to, hey, here's $20 per day to eat, and take care of them. And then we make sure that once they get there and that bus arrives, hey, family is there ready for them. And again, we've had tremendous success with that program. All right, so that's our numbers. I next want to turn it over to Mr. Gassaway. Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah, so real quick, just in answer to Councilmember Tim, you'd asked about the financial component of it. So since 2018, in total, the city has spent about $8 million on overall services. And just to frame that a little bit, in 2018, now what I don't know is how we were particularly accounting for some of this stuff, if we were really pulling that out. But in 2018, it was only just a little over 63,000 that at least we were accounting for specifically to this. So most of that 8 million was in 2019, 2020, and 2021. 2021 was by far the most we have spent at just a little under 4.4 million. Now the big differentiation there, and the reason it's really ramped up, is because of the sheltering services. And again, as Lieutenant Kresha was just speaking to, as we've had those shelter bed opportunities, the more that we've been able to get folks into the sheltering. And so in 2021, we spent just shy of $1.7 million on sheltering. Now, out of all of those totals, about $2.25 million has been spent on sheltering services starting in 2019. And just about $1.25 million has been grant funded. So it hasn't all just been local dollars. And certainly as we're getting more organized and coordinated, we're having more success along those lines as well. And we do know that the state is certainly starting to ramp up the amount of money that they're putting out through grant programs that we're successfully going after. So that's some of the information. If any more specifics there, I can.
No, that's good. And actually, you're very, very close. So I appreciate it. And there's, again, a reason why I asked. It'll be further on in the conversation. But thank you very much.
Yeah, of course. And I guess the $4.5 million I was remembering was just 2021.
Right. All right. Thank you, sir.
Vice Mayor Vaccaro, please.
Yeah, Councilman Tim, actually, you brought up a point about, other cities, dumping people in our city. I just want to let you know, too, that, and Councilwoman Pandoro can, I'm sure, agree with me on this, that's been brought up a lot in the 2x2 committee about, how that's happened in the past and how it cannot happen, it cannot continue to happen in our city. And that's why the other cities, that's why the regional approach is so important, so people don't just get dumped in our city. We understand that the county, the services are here on Beck Street, all the social services, but that's no excuse still for people to come here and stay here, okay, because they're not from our city. So, and I think, would you agree, Councilwoman Pandora, that that's come up a lot, and they agree that it shouldn't happen. So I know it's a struggle, but I just wanted to tell you that, so.
On these statistics, Mr. City Manager, how many of these are repeat customers? Are these all unique who have successfully been sheltered? Because I know that people come in and out of shelters. And do you have an answer for that, Dawn?
We do,
Oh,
now that we're
yay.
using our amazing Apricot 360 system. Those are unduplicated. So those are unique participants. If we count the duplicants, I made up that word.
I like it.
Feel free to use that, yes. We have, I think, and I'm going to guesstimate, but it was about 210. So it was a little bit over 200 that were actually referred into shelter and entered into shelter. But the 140-ish number, those were unduplicated.
Oh, thank you.
So now I'm going to look to council, and I pose a somewhat simple question, right? What does success look like? And I'd like to hear from each of you, and I'll, with the mayor's approval, I would start just for ease with Councilwoman Panduro and move on down the line. What we're going to be trying to do here is our folks set up sort of a live capture system. So we've got someone in the back, Renee's in the back, as you give us what your definition of success might be, she'll capture that. That way we're getting those notes on the screen. And we're not going to try to, wordsmith that necessarily tonight, similar to the retreat where we're just capturing this information. We'll bring that back to you in a document for you to review and hopefully approve. But I think Councilwoman Moy said that, sort of the definition of insanity is kind of doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And so ultimately, my hope is by defining success, we can better start to understand exactly what it is that we're aiming at, right? And so, too often in government, we have an ability to have scope creep, right? And so over time, problems like homelessness, this is a very complex, multi-dimensional challenge that not just in Fairfield, but society at large, we're really dealing with. And so the more we can hone in on what we in Fairfield and what this city council views as what success would look like, what would victory look like for us as we're starting to aim our services at this problem, and as we just discussed, spending real dollars, spending real public resources to do it, then that really helps us to better tailor some of our approaches to meeting that definition of success. So with that, I would I see everybody furiously writing here, so I'm assuming you're taking notes on what that might be. But I would offer that up to anybody, or for ease, we could start with Councilwoman Panduro and just move down the line, or however you would like, Paul would like. Okay.
I'll about lead off. Success, and obviously we're all jotting down these things quickly. I want to see us all on the same page with open lines of communications throughout all the departments, and with that going into like one source where when you want shelter, when you want food, when you want which church, when you want, all of the numerous things that go on with HIT and HEART and all that, what is the one source? How can you track that? And it rolls right into my third response is measurable results. What does that look like? We see all these numbers. I don't see them anymore, but we see all these numbers, and what do they mean? So to me, it seems like we're counting. We know what the numbers are, but what is a measurable result? What does success look like from these numbers? I guess would be my question. Does that give you enough time, or you want me to ask one more question?
Councilman Thomas, if I might, do you have any thoughts on that, right? Because I agree with you, right? We're capturing good data. One of the things that I was talking with staff about a little bit, Don and I were having this conversation was, for example, HEART team, they do a great job of doing cleanups. Well, as we've added HEART positions, we've cleaned up more stuff. But is that necessarily a measure of success? Certainly, the more resources we're putting towards it, more encampments, more of that stuff we're cleaning up, and that is a good thing, right? That's one measure of some form of success. We're keeping the city cleaner by doing that. But is that necessarily moving the needle in terms of the overall?
Or what does the needle moving look like? We would all like to come outside and say, where'd all the homeless people go? They're all gone, but that's not reality. That's certainly not California. So just what does success look like? I think we've been doing, and the whole entire team has been doing a fantastic job. The perception is that homelessness rampant. Well, on a measurable result, linear trail, to my knowledge, is still clear. So we put in something there, that to me is a measurable result. When I have citizens coming up to me and saying, thank you, I haven't rode my bike down linear trail in whatever the time frame was. I've been scared to walk there at night. Things like that. That linear trail is a measurable result for me. When I go downtown, I say this all the time, but I incessantly drive, the district. The amount of homeless downtown has changed. It's dropped. Those numbers are, I count from Jefferson to, you see how I'm stalling here, from Jefferson to Penn, and Penn to Allen Witt Park, the numbers have gone down. I know they've gone down because I drive that multiple times a day. That's a measurable result for me. Allen Witt Park is very few, and I'm assuming PD is going out there and after a certain hour, after dark. Those are measurable results for me. I'm really happy with those numbers. Why does everyone think there's still rampant homeless downtown? Probably because they don't come down here, but those are measurable results for me. So if that gives you a direction.
Yeah, I think that's great. So if I were to summarize that a little bit, based on what I was hearing, I think what I was when citizens take notice that there's fewer homeless folks on the streets and that they're identifying that, right? That is a measurable, right? Through public input, we could measure that over time if people are saying, yeah, noticeably some of these problems are less visible, such as linear trail and the job that's been done there.
Exactly what I said.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
I'll go, just because I have a thought in my head and I don't want to write it down. I think for me, one of the things I was thinking about was just all our different providers. So we have the ones that we have. And I think success for me with regards to that would be to understand also what success for them looks like. because they are dealing with our residents for the most part. And so how many people are they intaking, and with regards to what their objective is as an organization, how many of them are they placing in homes, or are they, training them for job skills? So understanding and getting reports back on what they're doing, and then being able to compare, from one year to the next to see where if there's any gaps that maybe we can assist with. The other thing I think it was brought up already would be a central point for homeless services, information, resources. I know we have a great pamphlet that gets passed out. I have a couple in my car, but it would be great to be able to pinpoint an actual, website or something, or a page where people can go and get information. I think that concern has been verbalized. Again, having measurable variance. So, whether it's, who's accepting mental health help via the mobile crisis unit. How many people, when we do have those pop-up resource events, how many people are approaching the tent, and how many people are we actually being able to connect to resources? I know we have them, but I never hear back, how many people we actually were able to impact. Along those lines, I know we had an emergency shelter for the extreme weather we just had, and it would be great to know, how many people did go to the emergency shelter, and do we need another one? I mean, I know I passed by, because I'm nosy too, so I drove by to see to see how it looked like. I was just curious, but I was glad to hear that people did go in and use it. But if I hadn't asked, I wouldn't have known if people had actually used it. And success would also be people feeling safe, people being able to go into any grocery store and taking a walk down Leonard Trail, or even, down North Texas, and feeling safe to be able to walk down there. I know right now that's not the most safest parts of town, but success for me would be for people to feel safe in their own neighborhoods, no matter what part of the city they lived in.
Councilman Tim, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. You've described a lot of successes tonight, and probably the biggest one is we can provide housing to those who want it. But going forward now, I don't know what success will be, but I will tell you what my wish list is provide case management, mental health treatment daily. And I'm not identifying a funding stream, but be able to come out and say, instead of once a week, and I understand the limitations in the hit and heart team, but instead of once a week, you go under the bridge, you say, hey, dude, how you doing? Have you quit crank? As soon as you leave, that needs to be ongoing, where they see somebody every day if we have that capability, or every other day. Also, we haven't talked about conservatorship or the care court. We need to be on top of that legislatively in Sacramento. We need to identify funding streams, because success is actually removing people from the street and helping them, right? Not just moving them from camp to camp. Because like I said, the ones that want help, they get the help. We need to focus on the ones that either don't want the help or don't know they need the help. And I'm talking about the Prince, the guy, half naked, wearing a blanket in the middle of East Tabor, North Texas, dancing, and there's nothing the police can do with him, right? I mean, there's absolutely nothing. So conservatorship, I think, is something that we need to partner with the county and make sure that they understand that we are absolutely looking to remove the problem. And then finally, spend the money for success, ongoing success, and that means, I don't know how much it's going to be, but I can tell you what we spent, and David, you gave me that figure, and it's gone up incrementally every year, and if we don't keep moving forward, how much are we going to spend in 2 years or 4 years or 6 years? It's an awful lot of money, and this is where that I'm confident I think the governor has with the care court, and I'm not that familiar with the intricacies of it, but I do know it needs a funding stream because the city of Fairfield can't do this alone. So this is why I'm really, really excited about the partnerships now with the county and the other cities. But we need to focus on the ones that don't know they need the help or that refuse the help. And that to me is success. Thanks.
One more, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excuse me, allergies. I think we first have to start, this is going to sound strange, with the definition of what's homeless. The reason why I say that is HUD itself has 12 different definitions of what homeless is. And and then you end up with weird things. For instance, in 2000, I believe it was 15, the numbers showed that the county had 1,082, this is our pit count, 1,082 folks that were homeless. But the county swears up and down, they served 9,000 homeless people that year. So we need to figure out what's homeless. And that has to be part of our statement of what we are doing here. What is homeless? Once we figure that out, we need to figure out what I think Scott was talking about, and that is accountability. We need accountability for every dollar that we spend. So, we know if we spend, let's say, $2,328, maybe that would be that we have a person who's stable in stable housing with wraparound services. I know that number's way out there, but we need accountability for every dollar. We need to look at programs for prevention. And what do I mean by that? We know that people, mothers and dads who are homeless, their children are homeless, and then they get in the cycle. I have helped three different generations of homeless people at Heather House. It's something that if we can help them with the kids, and we have 1,000 kids in the county that are homeless, if we can work with the Solano County Board of Education, which is where they do a lot of this, on helping those kids and making sure that everybody understands the laws, which say that homeless kids must get rights by the school districts, and all of that. We just need to work with them to make sure those kids are getting everything they need, and to help them, just like we help the kids with PAL, help these kids understand that this isn't their life necessarily. We can get them out of this and give them hope, is what I'm saying. And you do that through love, education, and right now we don't have any programs for our youth, homeless youth. So I think that needs to be a priority. We need to do that as far as prevention. And then we need to start the task of removing what is housing first. And why I say that is housing first. I look around at all the places in this country that have had a hard time with homelessness. What do we all have in common? We all use housing first. Why is that? Because that's the only way you can get money from HUD. So we're going to have to go to the feds or on down. And what is homeless? What is housing first? Housing first is one of the reasons why a lot of shelters got shut down that we actually need. It's very complex, but I think what would be better is a whole different theory. But you still have no barrier to bring people in, which is the really good part of housing first. And then you work from there. They cannot, you can't have people who can get stoned all day and don't work, and you can't tell them to do chores. I mean, it's pretty amazing, and people don't understand that. So we need to start dismantling that, but we're going to have to start at the top, and it's going to be really hard. But there are more and more people coming around to the fact that this has caused a lot of our problems. The reason why we have homeless people out there who are severely drug addicted is because there's no consequence. So I think that's one of the things that I see. And then I want to make sure that as we go into this great regional approach, which I think is fabulous, that because Fairfield, we're ahead of others, I think light years actually, that we don't become the capital for homelessness in Solano County. No, we want to help our folks who are here, And we need to get every one of them off the streets. If they want to live on the streets in a tent and what I call, their drug dens, then they need to leave the city. I think we just need to let them know that it's illegal and you're not allowed here anymore. You can go in and we're going to help you with everything we have, but you can't be here anymore. And sometimes that helps bring them in. At least it's worked for me when I go out around the city and talk to them. And then the last thing is, yes, the care court that I brought up before. The money is going to come from the state if they, implement this. There is pushback, of course, there always is with different things that are different. But I think overall it's a good strategy. But I think we should probably go ahead and just do it here anyway. What I mean is, again, since we're going to do a county-wide approach, that we could put together a care court ourselves. We already have drug courts, we have neighborhood courts, and this would help with folks who have addiction to drugs or suffer from mental illness. So I think that no matter what, that we should move forward with, quote, care courts in Solano County. And that's all. I don't ask much, but that's what it looks like to me.
So, real quick, just on one of the points that you made there, I just want to see if I can clarify it in terms of what does success look like? And that was on the concept of, I think you said that if, as we're leading the charge here,
yeah.
and we're kind of out there on that leading edge, we can't be the place where everybody just sends everybody else. And
Right.
so in terms of defining success, would one potential, definition of success there be that regionally we're coordinating that so that everyone's in agreement on how to address that specific issue?
100%. We need to, as we work with our colleagues in other cities and at the county, because, let's be real, the county really has all the money for social services. Cities are being forced to spend it on social services. So, yes, we need to agree with the others that we're not going to do that kind of thing anymore. And that's part of that's part of an agreement, that we just will help each other and not hurt each other. And that means helping our own folks that are here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I like everything that I've heard. Makes a lot of sense, and glad you're taking notes. Success, to me, success looks like a feasible zero-tolerance policy for people living on the streets of Fairfield, California. Zero tolerance. Because this is a public health crisis, and we should not be satisfied with people living on the streets. So that is what success looks like. I'm from Oakland, California. Anybody been to Oakland lately? Wow. That is an example of what we don't want to do, because it is just commonplace now, where there are communities that live on the street in squalor every day, forever. That's what we don't want to do. So that's what success looks like for me. Zero tolerance policy for people living on the streets in Fairfield, California. And I think there's a couple of prongs to that. Number one, a navigation center will help us get there, because a navigation center will be a centralized location for the disposition of the resources that we currently have. It makes sense. So for the folks who want help, boom, there it is. We just, Chuck just, confirmed we do, I'm sorry, Councilman Tim. Just confirmed, yes, we do have beds for everybody who wants help. We just found that out tonight. If we had a navigation center, everybody in the city would know that. Right? So I think that one of the ways that we can have a feasible zero tolerance policy on people living in the streets in Fairfield is to have a navigation center to maximize exposure to the resources that are currently in place. Number two prong, we as a city council, we need to deal with what we're going to do, and maybe it's a legislative fix, maybe it's an ordinance. I was talking to the assistant district attorney the other night when we were at Bethel Community Church, and he had some ideas on what we can do, not as a legislative body, because we're not, kind of, but, you know, what can we do ordinance-wise to help facilitate dealing with folks who don't want your help? We have to do something about that. That's why we're up here. Because there are people that live on the streets who do not want mental services. They do not want shelter. They want to be left alone. That's not okay. And this is the duly elected body of people who are supposed to figure that out. So I would really like to see the city council dig into what are some solutions that we can have to help our officers and to help the people on the front lines deal with folks who don't want to be helped by us. And if we don't deal with that, then we're going to be here next year talking about how many encampments we've cleaned up. So I want zero tolerance means we're done with that part. I mean, I hope every resident in this city is watching this tonight. $8 million? And we're still cleaning up encampments? And I'm saying we're doing the best we can. But this is our opportunity to think different, to do something different, and to think about ways that we can use these resources to actually fix this problem. So a navigation center, to have a centralized hub for the disposition of the resources, and then this council grapple with what we can do. How are we as a body going to approach the issue of homeless folks who don't want our help? We need to get down to that. And I think if we do those two things, we're moving toward a zero tolerance that we can actually achieve. Because I don't want us to lose sight of the fact that this is a public, no one should have to live like this on the streets, particularly kids, right? So, yeah, so that's my definition of success.
Okay, and so around those regulations, is that something, I mean, I think I understand that, but in terms of defining that success, is that, success there is us either finding a way legally to do something along those lines, or at least partnering with the community in a way, because I know, our PD has attempted to work with business owners on things they can do that can assist us, how we're working together, kind of like we talked about at the council retreat. What are those things that we do, what are those things they can do, and what are the things we can do together. So would success in that, in what you said there, be that we're identifying, or we have identified ways in which we can address those that do not want to accept services?
In a unified approach. I mean, I think the state of the law right now, Ms. City Attorney, is that the city of Fairfield is not legally able to remove people from the streets who want to live on the streets of Fairfield. So if our officer goes to an encampment tonight and says, we don't allow encampments, you gotta go, and they say, no, I wanna stay, that's it, where our legal rights stop right there.
Sure, so with encampments, we can clean up and remove encampments so long as we give prior notice. So that's one restriction, is we have to give folks notice that we're gonna be moving that encampment. There's also the Boise decision, which has been referenced a couple times tonight, which says that we can't criminally sanction folks for sleeping on public property unless there is shelter available to them. And there's some nuances in that, but there's also some practical considerations.
But do we have the legal? Are we in a position now to say, if you don't, we have shelter. We have shelter. And they say, I don't want to go to shelter. Are we legally within our rights in the state of California to say, well, living on the streets of Fairfield is not an option for you? So it's either the shelter or something else. And that's what the city council needs to figure out, what that something else is. But do we have the legal right to say that? Or does the right of the homeless resident trump our ability to get them off the street?
Yeah, so we do have the anti-camping ordinance that's on the books, and we can look at the nuances of the Boise decision in light of kind of what we've learned this evening and provide the council additional advice on that.
I think that would be great, because I think that, I think that we all agree on this, and I think that we really need to have, we really, as a united front, we need to have a legal mechanism for dealing with, and not just to criminalize and just throw them in jail, but a legal mechanism to address the folks who don't want our help and who are living all over this city on the streets every day.
Right. If I may jump in, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to address that. So there is no crime against being homeless. You can be homeless. What you can't do is camp out on the property when we have shelter space available. You cannot camp in our parks. You can't camp on someone else's property. And with that, yes, we do take action against those people. Now, we know that we cannot arrest our way out of this homeless crisis, but what we do is we use that as a tool. And if you remember, I don't know, maybe 6-8 months ago, I came to you guys with a council resolution to increase the penalties for some of our city ordinance violations, where more than one violation within a calendar year would be treated as a misdemeanor. Because we know that, if you're camping or in violation of a city ordinance, let's say for this one, in the park after dark, and you receive a citation for that, before you guys amended the Fairfield Municipal Code, I wrote you a ticket, you signed it, you left, and it went to collections. And I'll be honest, I told you this before, that night, some of these people aren't really concerned about their credit history or their credit score going down. They just kept moving on. And so we came to you guys asking for an increase in the penalties, not because we're going to go and arrest our way out of this. We're not going to go and take people to jail, but we want to use that leverage of potentially a misdemeanor violation and get it into, because infractions just go to traffic court, and use the municipal code to get people in. We're the only agency in Solano County that has an officer assigned to the mental health court right now, whereas the county tries to set that up. We have an officer, Officer Whipple, that's a liaison to that. It's representing law enforcement in Solano County to, help us funnel these people in. So when we do have a violation, a repeat offender, and it's like, hey, either go to the shelter or we're going to leverage the criminal justice system. And with that, we want to focus them towards mental health court or diversion or whatever the appropriate way is. So we do not criminalize homelessness. As I said earlier, we respect the constitutional rights of every single person, regardless of their status. And I know you guys know that we do that. But we do not tolerate people being in the park after dark or camping out in public. We have the ability to shelter you. That's not acceptable. Please take our help, or we're going to have to leverage the criminal justice system to make you take that help. So we are working on that. Obviously, there is challenges because we're just the executive side of things, right? And we just refer cases. Obviously, you guys as a legislative body, putting the pressure on the court system, our elected officials at higher levels to actually take those cases and prosecute them, again, not to incarcerate people, but to force them into resources is what we need.
That's exactly right, and that's our responsibility as leaders. Sometimes people don't want help because they just don't know any better, or they have mental illnesses, and sometimes we have to say, like my mom used to tell us all the time, don't ask me whether you're going to church Sunday morning. Don't even ask me that. Get up and do it, because she knew that in the long run it would help us. Now, after a late Saturday night, Pam wasn't feeling like going to no church, but I did anyway, is what I'm saying. So sometimes when you push people and push them into what they need to do, that's where the light switch turns on. That's when they say, oh, I don't have to live like this every day. There's a better way to do it. So I really like that approach a whole lot. So what is the status of that strategy right now?
of leveraging so we do use it. We, as part of our quarterly roundtables, we have a representative from Solano County District Attorney's Office, but again, they can only do so much because they just prosecute the cases. But judges recently, in the last year or so, maybe you can speak better on this, the ability to refer cases to diversion was removed from the District Attorney's Office and resides solely with the judges. And so obviously that's a challenge. The benefit for us is that we have someone, we have our own guy on the inside who's trying to funnel that. Those are, again, these are cases, we take each case involving homelessness individually, and we look at that person and their history and what they need, and we focus. Again, we're not going to just arrest everybody just for the sake of arresting. We have a strategic plan when we decide, hey, maybe it's homeless individual here and they are a habitual drunk. Maybe we leverage the DA to actually press charges for being drunk in public, so that way we can dry them out with the promise, and we work with even the public defender's office and go, hey, our goal is not to put your client in jail. We just want to get them cleaned up sober, so that way we can transition them into the appropriate shelter or program, detox, whatever it is. And this is still in the building stages. It's still in progress, but we are there and we are working on it. So that was a new tool that you granted us 8 months ago, and we're using it.
And so, Ms. City Attorney, if I would love the City Attorney's Office to, as you offer, to look at some of the case law and what I guess other communities are doing, and give us some advice and counsel on our legal strategies for dealing with the homeless folks who don't want our help. Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, this is the bad part about going last here, because everybody said a lot of good things here, so that's okay. I'm sorry, I know the mayor's coming after me. I shouldn't say that. Sorry. No, I know, but I do have a couple of things, especially one thing I really want to bring up. Well, first of all, what does success look like? I think, to me, it's pretty obvious, more people off the streets, more mental health. I've been saying that all along. As far as the regional approach and Fairfield not becoming the hub, I think I brought that up earlier, and I know that that's something we discuss all the time. I absolutely do not want Fairfield to be the hub, trust me. And if it starts going in that direction, it'll stop. It'll stop, and we'll do something about it. Okay, so I'm going to, as a former, I always go back to education. I don't know why, maybe I shouldn't be on this council. But anyway, when I was a high school principal, one thing I saw when I took over at Armia was, the high schools didn't work together, right? And that really bothered me. So what we did as principals, we got together and said, look, none of this sort of like, okay, I do this better than you, you do this better. Oh, those guys don't do that. And so we decided that was not going to happen, that we were going to work together on certain things, like the discipline policy or, some educational curriculum things. And I know I'm not, trust me, I have a point here that I'm making, okay? My point is the politicization, sorry, I don't know if that's saying it right, of homelessness, it really bothers me, okay? And it's bothered me since day one. And what I mean by that is we have some really good providers in this city. Okay, whether it's out at Shelter Inc. or City Church was mentioned, or some of the other churches, or you just mentioned Mount Carmel. But what I hear sometimes is exactly what I just said. Well, we do it better than them. That we can't talk like that anymore. What we have to do is say we'll work together, and that would be success for me, that all the providers actually work together, because I'm sick and tired of hearing one provider say, oh, hey, those guys don't know what they're doing, but we do. Don't say that. What you should say is that we want to work together on this. We have some people in this city that really care. We have a council that really cares. Okay, and our staff, our police department, our fire department, our public works, they go out there every day and bust their butts, trying to work on this problem. And I believe in our staff, and I believe in our first responders. And I think that, you guys are working together. This staff here is working together. We need to get the providers out there to work together. Until that happens, there is not going to be success. Okay? And that's the way I look at it. So when I said I was getting to the point, that's the point I was getting to. Because it's real easy to say, yeah, success looks like this, this, and this. And it does. You know, more people off the street, more mental health. But we have to get the providers to work together. So they need to stop throwing stones at each other or saying, hey, we need more money because we can do it better. No, that's not the way it's going to work. So that's my take on success, Mr. City Manager. Thank you.
Well, I really appreciate all of you and your comments and your solutions. But one of the things that really bothers me, I grew up believing that pain makes man think, thought makes man wise, wisdom makes life endurable. I really do believe that. I think we have a golden opportunity with what the county is proposing, and I really hope that we will join that effort and work collectively to find the solutions. But one of the things that really bothers me, and I'll just tell you a little anecdote. It's been about 10 years now. There was a couple in town, unmarried. They were houseless. They had 5 children, 5 different fathers. The county decided at the end that they could not afford to raise those children because otherwise they'd keep producing them. I was doing the Red Kettle over at JCPenney's 10 years ago. Both of them came walking up and they were dragging their luggage. The luggage was all new. And they wanted me to know that they were leaving Fairfield. They were going to go to Las Vegas. 2 months later, they were back. They're still here. And they're depending upon the good wishes of society to keep them alive. They're not bad people, but they just don't realize the impact that they are having upon this community. And I really don't believe a caring society can continue to support the efforts that thus far have failed all of us. You've all laid out wonderful solutions, and I think the county and extending their offer to the Fairfield City Council, and I want to thank again Councilwoman Panduro and the Vice Mayor for choosing to serve on that committee. The end game has to come much sooner than later. And let me just share one other quick anecdote. I drive Airbase Parkway at all hours. I thought I had this turned off. I drive Airbase Parkway at all hours of the day and night, and I'm bothered by the number of homeless people who are camping not only on Airbase Parkway, but also on Peabody Road. I'm really concerned about the homeless folks, I'm assuming they're homeless, who are walking or riding their bicycles on Airbase Parkway, and they're right next to fast-moving traffic. There's got to be a solution to that, just as there's got to be a realistic solution to our homeless concerns here in Fairfield. And what we're doing is pretty darn good, but we need that ultimate solution. And to me, that ultimate solution is we're not going to continue the status quo. We can't afford it. And my concern is, and Councilman Bertani has explained it very well, I don't want Fairfield to become Oakland East. So we've got to stop it as quickly as we can. And I really sincerely appreciate all the great work that city staff are doing, but we need to find a realistic, affordable solution and set an end game, set a date where we're not going to do it anymore because it's just not working. So, thank you very much. It's a conundrum, it certainly is. Thank you.
All right, we've got 2 more quick sections of this. That was a lot of great feedback.
Excuse me, Mr. City Manager, is Endgame on the list?
Is Endgame
on the list of, from the notes and stuff, that, an end game, like the mayor just said? Whoever's taking the notes that are before us right now, there you go. There you go.
That's it.
All right, so to move us along and get to the final portions of this, we'll do a quick SWOT analysis, and this is rapid fire. So strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges. Lieutenant Kresha is going to lead us through this conversation, and then the last bit, and I think we heard a lot of it already under the definitions of success, would be prioritizing just some of the items that we work on. And some of that might really be as we come back. We heard a lot of great stuff. There's only so much we can do. The message that we tried to, reinforce over and over at the retreat is that we can do anything, we can't do everything. And so we can come back, with realistic action plans for you to look at over the next year. So with that, Lieutenant Kresha.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Real fast, Councilmember Moy, I just want to let you know, earlier you brought up, I can't address all the encampments that came up today, but you mentioned Kaiser, and they have multiple encampments in the barbecue. I checked with Sergeant Tim, that was marked, services offered, and it'll be cleaned up by Friday. That already happened, so yeah, no problem. As our staff got together and we started, taking a look on the Quality of Life Task Force, we started taking a look at what was going to go on this evening. We wanted to obviously come to you guys with a comprehensive and thought out, process for this. And we took a look at the private sector and identified that probably the best course of action would be doing a SWOT analysis. Now, a SWOT, if you're not familiar, it stands for Strengths, Weaknesses, Opportunities, and Challenges. It's a strategic planning method used to research internal and external factors to affect success and growth. And so I'm going to ask you all a couple questions for each of those quadrants. Renee in the back, she's going to be taking notes. The staff has already done an internal one, and we're going to kind of take a look, see how those compare, and then go forward from there. So the first one I want to lead off with is our strengths, and that's one of our easiest ones. Strengths. In regards to a SWOT, what are the strengths of our program? What are we known for, and what are we doing well? And I'd just like to open that up for some feedback from you all. And by we, obviously, the staff in the city of Fairfield.
I'll lead off. I think you guys are doing a great job in your, when there's an issue, you guys get on it quickly. PD, hit, heart. So I like that part, the speed at which you guys move. The other strength that I see, Councilmember Panduro and I went on a ride along with the hit team and hooked up with the heart team too. They were cleaning up a encampment. But the passion that the HIT team and the heart team have, and certainly the homeless services team and the rest of staff, the passion that you guys have is admirable, and that comes clear to me, because when you're dealing with this, I'm like freaking out, and you guys are calm, and you're like, we can do this, and immediately we had to see 5-10 people that we stopped every time. It was like, we want to help. Here's what we can do. Why are you here? How can we, so I would put the passion, you guys' passion up there, certainly right at the top.
So a timely response, coupled with a sincere desire to help.
Yeah, you guys, it's not, I mean, you guys aren't pissed off. You're out there because you love your job, and you want to do what's right, and that's shown clear on our ride along. So that part I really do appreciate.
Thank you.
So I guess that wasn't a suggestion. It was just a pat.
Absolutely, that is a great strength. Thank you, sir.
So mine are just bullets. So empathy and compassion. I think going along that ride along, we had a firsthand look with regards to the interactions between the HIT team and the individuals that we approached that day.
innovation. So the fact that we do have the the pop-up events, the mobile crisis unit. So just being able that we have those things, I think is very it's innovative on our part. And then also just like Councilmember Tonneson just said, like dedication. So it just shines. I was just so impressed. Like I had no words afterwards. Just the dedication and passion that came through that day was amazing. And then having a structure. So Joe, just being on the 2x2, I'm learning what other cities do and do not have. And I'm like, wow, we're actually pretty, we've done our work. We've done a really great job of creating and having structure and process with regards to homeless services. Thank you.
Yeah.
And any other, yes, go ahead, please, Councilman.
I'm just going to follow up with what Scott said, and that is, the city of Fairfield, we have been groundbreaking in everything that we've done all along, from the HIT team to now working in the court, trying to help over there. We're the first people who do it. Our first two on the HIT team, one's now captain, and one actually went up to the state to help the governor on this kind of stuff, because that's what we're known for. We're known for going out there, we're being bold and being innovative. That's what we are. And so that's what I'm proud of. And, we need to let people know also that we do have beds for everybody. That is astounding. That is a big thing that's happened. It's a big thing. And, staff deserves more than a pat on the back for that. That's some hard work, and well done.
Thank you. Mr. Vice Mayor, please.
Yeah, just 2 words, and I'd say our staff, that's our strength. I could, follow up on what Councilwoman Moy said, and Scott, and Councilman Tonneson and Councilwoman Pandora, but no, our staff's our strength. And we could talk for hours about it, but
Anybody else? Okay, thank you.
All right. So while I love all the pats on the back and, the appreciation, we know we're not perfect. We always have areas to improve. So the next one I wanted to address was weaknesses. So what are we struggling with? What are our internal deficiencies in the resources, and what is hindering us? What's holding us back? And I'd like feedback if possible.
Councilman Tim, please.
Thank you. What's holding you back is certainly not your problem. It's not a agency problem or a department problem. It's society's problem, and by that I mean current laws, right? The inability or the ineffectiveness to enforce the laws, to try and help people where it's not getting better, and yet things refuse to change. Councilwoman Moy was talking about how can we make somebody do something they don't want to do. You can't really book them in county jail. If you book them in county jail, they're there for about, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever. So then it gets to the district attorney's office, and the DA says, this is a de minimis violation. DA's office is busy. If it gets before a judge, and the judge goes, really? And I'm not criticizing anybody, but it's what has happened to our laws, and it's a fact that we have to face. So how do you change that? We're not going to change that overnight. But one of the things that we can do is continue to, and I wouldn't even call it put pressure, but is to educate. We need to educate our legislators. We need to educate the public so that they get a complete understanding of what you're facing. I think that's a weakness that we struggle with, and every agency, every city struggles with it. You're not going to change this overnight. What is hindering the program? Money, right? Because I talked about earlier where we need to provide mental health care or case managers daily. How expensive is that? And probably the second thing is I'd venture a guess that you can't find enough qualified people to do that job. So you're kind of starting at day one, but how do you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time. So you need to start now. And like it was, Pam Bertani talked about, we're going to be here a year from now, 2 years from now, talking about the same thing. We might be, But I also would like to think that we can say, look at the success we've had in dealing with the county, the DA's office, the sheriff, and like I said, they are at the mercy of the law. So again, I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, but this is what I think we should focus on. We be very vocal in Sacramento, we be very respectful, but we're also very educated in knowing what we want, and we don't go away. Beyond your control, beyond our control, but perhaps it won't be in a year or 2 years. So that's what I see as the biggest weakness for the whole organization, but you're not the cause of it.
Real quick, I want to just jump in. I know we're, well over 2 hours now, and I'm sensing body language. So I just want to check in. I mean, these were kind of conversation pieces. We got really great direction, I think, through the conversation on what success looks like. So I just want to check in with council. Do we need a break? Do we want to stop now? It's up to you. I want to follow your lead.
I think the council has spoken. I think the council has spoken very comprehensively on what we're looking for moving forward.
Gotcha.
And on behalf of my colleagues, I want to thank all of you for the wonderful presentation this evening, and I would hope that the end game comes sooner rather than later. Thank you very much.
We saw you getting tired, David. So.
Thank you very much. And we are going to adjourn this evening in honor and memory of Vic Facio, longtime congressman who really was a remarkable influence on Capitol Hill. And when we went back to do the lobbying, he always met with us. Well, he passed away, and that is an unfortunate circumstance. But what a wonderful legacy he has left us in the city of Fairfield, particularly the Fairfield Streams Project that took care of that flooding problem. It was an annual event. So thank you very much. We are adjourned.